there's mutually beneficial opportunities out there where, a targeted grazer could build a relationship with a goat producer, lease those goats from the goat producer to provide their service, benefiting both the rancher and the operator.
Howdy, folks, and welcome to the Goat Grazing Podcast. I'm your host, Max Wade. Are you an aspiring goat-entrepreneur looking to start your own goat grazing business? Or maybe you already have a herd out there earning its keep, and you just want to learn a little bit more. Or maybe you're just fascinated by this amazing industry. If so, this is the podcast for you. Folks, I am so excited about our guest today. On the show today, we have yet another goat. I'm not talking about the four-legged kind. I'm talking about another greatest of all time guests. Today, we are speaking with Steele, who's the founder of Goats on the Go, author of Goats for Good, and host of Farm Dog Podcast. Folks, this man is the epitome of the goat-entrepreneur, and he's put together an incredible list of opportunities and resources for folks like you, folks like me, and anybody else out there that's looking to get into the goat grazing industry. Aaron, welcome to the Goat Grazing Podcast.
Thanks, Max. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
I am so excited. You have so many things going on. You've got to be one of the busiest men that I know, doing so many great things for our industry. And I'm not going to waste any more time yapping. I just really want to get into this and hear your story. Can you give us that 30,000 foot view of what is Goats on the Go?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So Goats on the Go is a national brand of independent goat grazing operators. So from the 30,000 foot view, it probably looks like a franchise. We're not technically a franchise, but we have what we call affiliates all across the U.S. that use our brand and trademarks and our training and support and resources to provide their own targeted grazing operations right where they live and serve the neighboring communities around them. So we started as a goat grazing operation of our own right here in Ames, Iowa, serving the Ames and northern Des Moines metro areas in central Iowa. And, we're just looking to scale. And of course, the obvious way to scale is just keep doing more projects and more acres and with more goats, And we love the work we were doing, but we went into the business. And when I say we, me and my original business partner, we went into the business knowing if we can't do this and have a normal family life, then we're not going to do it. So we didn't want to be kind of a nomadic operator. We wanted to serve the communities near us and the people near us. And so rather than just go farther and bigger and more, we decided to help other goat grazing companies get started and help them be successful. And we are finding, we were really green at the time back in 2012, 2013 when we got started. And almost immediately, though, when we started doing some projects and getting press, we had people reaching out to us asking for advice. How do I operate a grazing business like yours? Max, I can give you lots of tips, but a few emails isn't going to do it.
Right. You bet.
There's just too much to cover. And so that kind of was the impetus for us to start our affiliate program and help these other independent businesses get started right where they live.
So this idea of the affiliate program, like you said, it resembles a franchise to some degree. It's not a franchise. What are those things that really kind of delineate that it's an affiliate, not a franchise? And what does that mean to somebody that's wanting to get into the program?
Yeah, there are some important but subtle distinctions between what we're doing in a franchise. This business is a seasonal business, and for many operators, it's not going to be their primary source of income. It's going to be an additional thing, a thing to introduce the kids to entrepreneurship and owning a business and responsibility. And it's going to be extra Christmas money and maybe a bigger vacation. There are operators for whom this job replaces a six-figure salary, and they can, in 5 or 6 months of a grazing season in some parts of the country, it can be pretty short, and they can it can be their main source of revenue, but I would say that's the minority of folks. And so it was important for us. We knew that if we were going to build this community of affiliates across the country, that it had to fall on this side of the franchise line, because when you get into the legalities of a franchise, it becomes expensive for everybody. Lots of extra paperwork and responsibilities and legal documents and that sort of thing. and ongoing management of all those things. So, and it's different in the franchise laws are different in every state, but essentially one of the things that we do differently than a franchise is that we don't dictate how the on the ground operations have to happen for any one of our affiliates. They are simply licensing our brand and licensing our proprietary resources, including our training. And then they benefit from being part of this community. Whereas in a franchise, they would be trained, certainly, but they would be told how to do everything every day and how to stick to the standard for the franchise. And that's something that we don't highly value and that we don't subscribe to in our system.
So if I'm hearing you right, it's somewhat of a clearinghouse for if I'm out there looking for somebody to hire to come do some vegetation management on my property, I can say, go to the Goats on the Go website, and you have affiliates across the country, and I can find somebody in my area that might be doing this. Is that a resource that's available in Goats on the Go?
Yeah, absolutely. So, we're not a magic marketing machine where we just churn out leads. We have this, very detailed marketing scheme to provide business to our affiliates, but they do all benefit from being part of this bigger family. So this brand. And so we are like 75 tiny little companies across the U.S. acting like a bigger brand together and sharing a website. And that does have benefits for directing potential customers to, quote, their local affiliate. So they can go to our website, learn about what goat grazing is and how it works and what its benefits are generally. But then we introduce them to their local affiliate through our website, and the relationship goes off in that direction from there, and we stay out of the way at that point.
So for those folks that are looking to get into this business now, and it's either you've got goats on the go, and we'll talk a little bit more about sheep on the go. I see that you've added that. For these folks that are wanting to get into this, you're offering a whole lot of a package deal to essentially teach you how to do this business and to guide you along the way with a lot of also beneficial resources. So walk me through the process of somebody coming to you and becoming an affiliate, and what do you do? What does it take? What does it cost? What do they have to go through?
Sure. Yeah. First of all, they have to have the drive to do it. And in our conversations with potential affiliates, we try to figure out, what's motivating you here. If you just see this as a path to untold wealth, maybe we need to have a different conversation. There's potential to have real financial rewards here, but we got to have more motivating factors than that. And, we want to talk to them about their livestock experience, and particularly goat experience, because as anybody who's dealt with goats knows, goats are a different creature. And so we have had people say, I'm dying to start this business. I want to start today. I'm ready to sign a contract. And next week, I'm going to get my first goats. And then we're going to start a business, right? We usually say that's taking on too much at once. We need to have some goat experience first. But yeah, so we talk to affiliates throughout that recruiting process, and ultimately they sign a contract to commit to initially 2 years of operating a goat grazing business under the Goats on the Go brand. And so they benefit from that brand and all sorts of other resources. So, and you asked what it costs. Our affiliates pay a flat annual fee currently that is about $2,400 a year. We don't currently take a percentage of their revenue or anything like that. That's one of those franchisee things that we avoid. So there's not some giant upfront affiliate fee followed by we take 10% of your revenue forever. I describe it as more like a membership fee for a club. You pay the membership fee for the club, you get all the club's benefits. Mm-hmm. And so they sign the contract and they have to attend our training before they can visit any customer sites. That training is as much a celebration of the business and the industry as it is training. I mean, we do talk about a lot of the details of how to operate a business, but I think that anybody who's come to it feels like think the greatest thing about that was all the support I felt and this community of other people. And we're all pushing toward the same goal, and we all have the same values and interests in mind. And I'm not going to be out there on my own when that first big business challenge hits me on an island. I've got support. I've got people who've been through this before. When we've got 75 affiliates across the U.S. and some of them have been doing it for 6-7 years, that's a lot of combined experience that new affiliates can draw on. So I don't know if I hit every part of your question there. So just redirect me if
You're
necessary.
doing, yeah, this is fantastic. I mean, the idea of this networking, a place to be able to go and say, hey, what do I do in this situation? Or I didn't anticipate this coming on, because every single day can be like that in this business. You run across something new that you've never thought of or encountered before. And so surely somebody in the network has. So that's a incredible resource for somebody. This training that you're offering, you're having them all come to you in Iowa. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. At least for new affiliates in their initial training, we do make that an in-person training. Since the beginning, we've just really valued the personal interaction. And I know that this seems quaint in this day and age. You know, here you and I are talking to each other from across the country and across a time zone on video. And, you know, I even have days when I think, well, do we need to do this in person anymore? You know, we really do. Like, there's so much more to be gained by having that community and those people together. Another thing is that it builds trust. So one of the downsides of all this technology is something like Facebook groups, right? That can get really nasty. And
Yes.
it's hard to be nasty with people who you've looked in the eye over a beer and shaked hands with and talked about the common things you have going together, you know, in raising goats and the challenges of goats. And here's what my terrain is like where I live. And here's the vegetation you're dealing with out there. You know, once you've been in person with those people, it's hard not to be supportive of each other throughout the rest of the year. So we do require that first training be in person. We do have ongoing training requirements for our affiliates, and more of those are being provided remotely. But we still really highly value getting together and being people and having relationships.
Well, I think it's a boots on the ground, hands in the dirt kind of business anyway. And so being very hands-on with the entire thing, I mean, face to face with customers every day and face to face with your fellow affiliates that is a valuable tool for sure. What do these trainings look like? What can somebody expect that they're going to go through? Is this a boot camp? How long is it? I mean, are you going out there and showing them how to set up fence, how to talk to customers, how to price jobs? What's going on there?
Yes to all of that. You know, one thing we've learned is that we could have it be a week long and still not cover everything that somebody might come across. So what we're trying to do instead is prepare them for dealing with the challenges that come their way. Part of that is the support we provide and this community, but also just giving them a knowledge base that gives them the resiliency to get through some of those challenges, because we just can't cover it. So our basic training required for new affiliates is a day-long. In the spring, it's a classroom event. In the fall, we've just added a fall cycle, and that is a classroom event followed by a hands-on session where we actually have goats and trailers and fencing and stuff to work with. And yeah, we are covering everything from how do you arrive at a customer's property, look around, listen to the customer, identify vegetation, and convert that into a quote that helps you make money. And we talk about, who are these customers that might call you up anyway? You know, what are their values? What are their problems? What are their challenges? Why do they call you instead of a landscaper or a skid loader with a brush cutter? And, you know, why you? Why goat grazing for them? And to really understand our customers well, we spend a lot of time on a customer segmentation that kind of tries to identify who our typical customers are and why they want to hire us. We talk about working with the media. You know, how do you do a press interview? We actually practice that on stage in our training. And we talk about pricing and pricing structures. We talk about the equipment that we would recommend and the equipment we would recommend against. And for many of our affiliates, just buying the right equipment from the outset instead of wasting their money on the wrong gear, that pays for their affiliate fee in year one right off the bat.
You bet. On those lines, because that's always a question for folks getting into it, of what equipment do I need to do this? A lot of folks have experience already in animal husbandry and having livestock equipment and that kind of thing. When you're giving that guidance of things that have gone well and things that maybe haven't gone so well, are you able, with essentially the membership, are you able to help those folks out, get some discounts on some of that initial equipment that they're getting?
Yeah, we do work with a vendor, and it's no secret who we work with. It's Premier One Supplies. And many folks listening to this will probably know that company. They're actually an Iowa company, and we're an Iowa company, so we love working with them, and we love the fact that, kind of the best retailer of this stuff is just down the road from us. So our affiliates do get a 15% discount on the list of equipment that we recommend they use. So that's a nice perk for our affiliates. And it's also a quality control measure for us. I mean, we don't control, like I said, the day-to-day operations of our affiliates. So one thing we're going to do is make sure that our affiliates have access to really high quality equipment. When it comes to containing goats, we don't want to try to be scrimping and saving on that stuff. We want the best. And so that's why we want to convey a discount for our affiliates.
We want as few goats on the go branded animals running down the street causing havoc, right?
Amen.
I think that's fantastic. You said you have approximately 75. Is that how many affiliates you have? About 75 across the country?
Correct. Yep. At the moment, we're in our spring cycle here, and we just had our spring training. So the numbers are fluctuating some, but yeah, we have 75 at the moment, and we'd expect, we're kind of shooting for 85, 90 by September.
Fantastic. When you're having affiliates come to you, what is your experience with those folks and their experience? Are these seasoned goat raisers? Are they in agriculture, or are you got folks that are coming to you with zero knowledge of it all and just want to get into it?
Yeah. So even the seasoned goat people in the US, they're hobby farms typically with 15 or 20 goats. If I talk to somebody who says, I've got 250 goats or 600 goats ready to roll right now, and I've been raising goats for 10 years commercially, that's a rarity in the United States, even for goat people, right?
Sure.
I love talking to those folks because they are equipped and ready. Like, they just need to learn how to make their operation mobile and portable, learn about customers, learn about some of the business details. But we know that the goat management side of things is a piece of cake for those folks. But I would say that they're fairly unusual. Most people are either have small farms or hobby farms and a relative handful of goats, or they have aspirations to have a large herd of goats, but they might be an experienced livestock producer, but they're just getting into goats. So they have the capacity to have 400 goats in the future, but at the moment they're at 50. That's fairly common. But we do get a lot of calls from people who literally have never owned, touched, been around a goat, but the concept of the business is so appealing to them that they kind of hear its call. Unfortunately, we have to slow those people down, because I would love to take that passion and channel it right into a business, because I know if they would just have 3 years of goat experience, they would be successful. But I got to slow them down and get them that experience first before we can send them out to do a business with goats.
So what does that look like? You're taking somebody who has zero experience in all this. You're slowing them down. But what does that mean? Are they becoming an affiliate and then you're bringing them along the way, or are you offering something to them to kind of get them up to speed and then having them realize, yeah, we want to go forward with becoming an affiliate, or we aren't cut out for this?
Yeah, I mean, typically what it means is when I slow them down, it means they're not going to be writing me a check, because
right.
I just have to say, like, I could take your money, but I want you to be successful, and you're not ready to be successful yet. Now, there are some folks who they're like, hey, last year we got 4 goats and we absolutely love goats and we'd like to expand our herd and we love what you're doing with this business, and they're fired up, but their experience is limited to 4 goats. In that case, what I'll often say to them is, this first contract with Goats on the Go is a 2-year contract. Why don't you join Goats on the Go while you continue to grow your herd and get all our resources and benefits? And in year 1, work on all your business planning, keep expanding that herd, figure out how you're going to go from 4 goats to 40 goats, how you're going to move them around. Spend year 1 of that contract just doing that. But you get to do it with all of our resources and support. And then whenever you're ready and you're scaled up to where you need to be, you can launch out to the public. And those people who kind of slow roll that buildup tend to be successful over the long term. So just because somebody doesn't have hundreds of goats right away, if they've got any goat experience, I love to encourage them down that path, because I think that ends up in a good situation for all of us in the end.
What a great opportunity. It's not just the goat experience that they're gaining through your program. It's a lot of just foundational business knowledge is what it sounds like to me, of running the gamut of things from marketing, customer relations, building the business plan, dealing with all of those expenses, insurance, the whole thing. So it's not just about learning how to feed goats and put goats on a trailer, which makes this such a fascinating program that you have. So talk to me about that component, because a lot of folks are out there can raise goats, but aren't necessarily cut out for a service type business. So how are you bringing them up to speed with all of that? Because there's a lot of things involved, the business license, the contracting, the insurance. How are you helping folks through that process?
Yeah, great question. I mean, most of our affiliates this is the first time they've ever owned a business. So all of that stuff is new to them. And, we can't provide detailed information about the state and local laws
Right.
and regulations in every state. But what we can do is call their attention to the existence of those things that they have to get put in place. Just things that turn out to be relatively simple, but they sound super intimidating to somebody who's starting a business for the first time. Like, what's an LLC? Why would I want an LLC? How do I go about forming an LLC? It's not really that hard, but it seems like a giant obstacle at first. And so talking about things like that is pretty important to us, and just calling our affiliates' attention to things that they should be on their radar as they build their business up that would otherwise shut people down entirely. And we're kind of helping them over the obstacle. But ultimately, they're doing it. They're doing it themselves. I think that just knowing that we're there as a support structure helps them a lot. But yeah, I mean, we talk about things in our training that are, they seem simple to anybody who's started a business, but things like what's the profit formula? A profit formula is revenue minus expenses equals profit, right? And so just saying to our affiliates, revenue is not the story, profit is the story. Having your schedule full is not the story. What we're after is not busyness, we're after profit for you. And kind of getting them to drill down on stuff like that. And things like, if I'm out there setting up fences, I need to pay myself for that labor. And that labor isn't profit. I'm not paying myself profit when I pay myself. That's just a wage, right? So, and I have to count my own wage in my accounting before I know if I have a profit or not, because that's just an operating expense day to day. And those are pretty simple principles. And I think when people hear it explained for the first time, it's, well, yeah, okay, I get that. I understand that if I'm not out there setting up fence, I would have to pay somebody to do that. So I better at least pay myself what I'm willing to pay somebody else to do that work. That starts to make sense for them. But it's the thing that nobody thinks about, or that most people don't think about when they start this business. They're thinking goats and moving around and traveling and making customers happy, but they're not thinking about pricing and costs and expenses and the difference between profit and revenue. So we do try to drive those things home as well.
Well, that's really where so much of that value of the expense that they have of the $2,400 per year, it's like, what do I get for my money? And there are so many things when it goes to any business, but especially to this business, the networking you have, the branding you have, but the handbook essentially as to all of these things that you need to be looking at that are going to affect that profit and the revenue side and cost of things. That is a invaluable experience to know going into these things, because you can get caught in a lot of ways in not just that a goat got out or you can't get fencing or whatever it is. There's a whole lot of behind the scenes things that nobody thinks about. So you mentioned pricing. That's the probably the number one question I get asked on a day-to-day basis is, how do you come up with a price? How do you charge for your services? So, it's different for everybody and every situation is different. What's your this is what it kind of looks like, what prices kind of are as an average?
Yeah. Just backing up a bit, you're absolutely right. The first question that people ask if they're interested in starting a business is, well, how do I even begin to charge, or what should I charge? And then the second question is, how do I find the people that will pay that? Who are those people? Where are they? Are there enough of them in my area to make this a business? Yeah. So one of the cool things about our structure is that we do get input from our affiliates from all across the country about what they're seeing their local markets can support in terms of prices. And So we help our affiliates get a starting point on price, but I think more importantly is a pricing structure and some kind of principles about pricing. Principles like whatever you go to market with is your price. That's the price for goat grazing in that area, because still a pretty new industry and there's not, professional goat grazing operators around every corner. So whatever you go to market with in your local area, that's the price. And once that price is kind of established or known in that area, it's hard to go up. So I think people's instinct is to say, well, I'm brand new. I need to develop a customer base. So I'm going to go at like a break-even pricing. Like I'm going to provide it at cost for a little while I build a clientele. And then I'll raise it to what it's supposed to be or what it should be to make me profitable. I usually advise our affiliates against that, even though it seems logical, because you're setting an expectation for now and forever as to what that price should be in your market. And so we try to give them a good starting point. We encourage them to set a target price and hold to that target price through most of their first season before they start dropping it in response to what they're hearing from customers. Because I think we are not for everybody. Goat grazing is not for everybody. And in particular, goat grazing is not for the price sensitive. That doesn't mean we're super expensive. In many cases, we are cost competitive against other modes of vegetation control, or even the only one that's practical on a site. But generally, we don't want to be competing with alternatives on price. And so we just tell folks, look, if you're having trouble finding customers who will pay this, you haven't found the right customers yet. We need to search harder for the right customers and drill down further on customers. So to get back, your audience is going to think that I'm avoiding the question about price. So let me circle back to that.
You are answering it exactly like I would have anticipated, which is it really is the only answer. So I think you're on the track that I expected you to be on.
It is a market specific thing, more so than virtually anything else that I can think of, virtually any other industry, because it's still relatively new. Those of us who have worked in it a long time, you probably have this, Max, where you're like, somebody's surprised and taken aback when they hear what you do. And you're like, really? Are there still people out there who haven't heard of goat grazing as a vegetation control method yet? But no, there are. We're in it every day, so we're used to it. But most of the country, this is still brand new. So prices are still being settled out. There are not enough professional goat grazing suppliers in most of the country to meet the demand. And there's demand that hasn't even been realized yet. Customers need to hear about it first. They need to know there's a vendor in their area. And then there's even more demands. I would just say in many parts of the country, you could probably technically show a profit at something like on a relatively small job, like let's say a 3-acre project, you could probably show a profit charging $800 or $900 an hour or per acre, technically on paper, but you're not going to feel rewarded by the business at that level. And that's what we want. We're not asking our affiliates to provide this service just because it makes them feel good. We want them to feel rewarded in all sorts of ways, both intrinsic and extrinsic ways. And ultimately, we do believe that they need to be financially successful in order to keep at it and in order to stay in business. So if they're not financially successful, then all the good that they could provide goes away.
Absolutely. So how do you coach these folks getting into the business about who are your potential customers and how do you find those customers?
Yeah. So, over the years, the quick answer is we do a whole bunch of stereotyping. Okay. Like we do a market segmentation, which is just business school speak for stereotyping. The catch is, though, that we're not defining our customers by demographics. So we're not saying, hey, you should go out and search for someone with this average household income in this county that owns X amount of property and is in this tax bracket and is married and has 3 kids. Like the demographics don't fully explain who wants to hire a goat grazing company. So we really try to drill down on what are their problems, what are their unmet needs, what values are driving them, and what do they want to achieve. So most of our customers they are not buying vegetation control. They're buying something else entirely. Some of them are buying the badge of honor of doing something that is perceived as environmentally progressive. Some of them are buying, honestly, and I think we have to address this. Some of them are buying entertainment. Some of them are buying the prestige of doing this really great thing for their family and their kids to see and experience in their backyards. We have in conservation and environmental groups that they're buying both a vegetation solution and they're buying outreach and education for the public because that's part of their mission too. So I'm talking around this question too, because it's a bit proprietary, but we train our affiliates to identify who their customers are. We have 6 customer segments that we've identified just from our experience over the years. And we believe that probably 90+% of customers can be dropped into one of our 6 buckets, right? And then knowing which bucket they're in, that's how we know how to market to those people, because we don't just say, hey, will you hire us? Hey, will you hire us? We try to appeal to them at the level of their needs and values.
I mean, yet another benefit of that fee that they're paying to be a member, to be an affiliate, which is you don't just go into this and you know where these goats apply in all situations, because there are a vast amount of opportunities and situations where it works, but you don't know that going into it. And that's one of those benefits of your program, is being able to give those folks that direction and that help. And any little bit of help is huge. I think it's just something that just beyond just the basic business knowledge, the direction of how to go with things it's priceless information.
Thanks. I mean, I think that we offer our affiliates a 2-year head start. If you had to go and figure all this stuff out on your own, and you certainly could. We don't have the market cornered on knowledge and information and the ability to learn. A lot of the stuff you can we did it. You did it. You just figure out on the job, right? But the question is, what's your capacity to absorb 2 years of spinning your wheels? And that's what we're trying to do, is just advance people past those hard times where you're learning more than you're actually doing.
Absolutely. For somebody who stumbled into it on his own and tried to figure it out on his own and still trying to figure it out, there's a place for having a lot of things figured out already. It would be much appreciated. Talk to me about your affiliates. Your initial investment is this 2-year contract. What happens? What are you seeing with your affiliates now that you've been in this for a while? Are they staying in the program? Are they opting out after 2 years?
The vast majority of our affiliates, probably 80% or more, after their first 2-year contract is done, will sign on for at least 1 more year. It's completely optional. And most of them say, all right, now I have the choice to go operate on my own, or I have the choice to just stop this. And most of them are choosing to sign on for at least 1 more year. And we have many affiliates that have been with us 6-7 years. We only started this program in 2016. And our attitude is, look, if we can't prove our value to you in those first 2 years, then that's our fault. And we're disappointed that we couldn't, or we're disappointed that you couldn't make it work with our help. But I think most of our affiliates find that first year is really a challenge. And that's why our contracts are 2 years, because you get into that second year and you don't even realize how many mountains you've climbed, how many obstacles you've gone over already. And all the problems that you have in year 2 seem small in comparison for the most part. I'm speaking very broadly, very generalized, of course.
Absolutely.
But, you say, oh, a goat didn't load on the trailer. Oh, I've dealt with that one before. I know I have the confidence that I can get that last goat on the trailer. Well, here's what I have to do. We do this, and we do this, and all the goats will be loaded up and we'll be out of here.
Absolutely. So it seems to me very apparent. You can draw very easy conclusions and connections as to how Goats on the Go is really great for a startup company getting into this industry. What is it that you're offering after that 2-year period that gives them more extended value? And what is that price to go on to basically re-up their subscription, if you will, to be an affiliate going forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most people come to us initially thinking the most valuable thing we can give them is the initial training and learning. What do I charge? How much do I charge? How do I find the customers who will pay that? The basics of setting up fence. Oh, which model number of fence should I order from Premier One Supplies? Right. I think that's what most people think that they're signing on for. And they do get that. Absolutely, they get that. But around year 2, they realize the most valuable thing here is the brand. You know, we're associated with this brand and associated with this website, and the website gets good traffic and search results. And then by year 3, when they're making a decision whether to sign on or not, I think what weighs really heavily on them is, I just love this community. I just love these people. I love the support I get. And that's what keeps them signing on with Goats on the Go, even though they could go a different direction.
What is that cost going on out of that 2-year period?
Yeah, typically we have a standard price, standard annual fee, and currently it's $2,400. And so we've raised it a couple of times over the years, but we typically don't have an increase every year. And some folks will want to sign on for many years, and then we'll work with them. We'll negotiate a little bit more with them if they want to do a long-term commitment.
Sure. That's fantastic. So you have a lot of these affiliates, and when you go onto your website, you can see your affiliates in different states and different areas. A lot of times they're in the same city. So when they sign on, if you've got a couple folks that are in the same area, are you assigning territories to them, and basically they don't overlap those territories?
That's correct. Yeah, we are a territory-based model. And we get, if you were to read one of our contracts, you would think, oh man, who is this uptight anal guy who wrote these territory descriptions? Because holy cow, are these things detailed? Well, they're detailed for a reason. We don't ever want our affiliates in the same vicinity to feel like they have the slightest bit of reason to not share information and support with the other affiliates in that area. And that has worked out really well for us because they don't compete with each other. They have no reason not to help each other out. And, you know, we've had affiliates combine forces to do a project that was larger than they could do on their own. Or we've had affiliates cover for the other while they go on vacation, you know, and that sort of stuff. That was a surprise for me, but like super rewarding to see that develop, that when we have multiple affiliates in a particular region, those people are set up better than an affiliate who's starting fresh in a new city.
What a better reflection of the coach and what he's put together than the team. The teammates working together to make something happen. That's something to be proud of, I think. I think this is a good time to kind of segue into your book. You know, you have amassed so much knowledge and experience over your own personal goat experience, working with Goats on the Go and the affiliate program there. And then you put together this really incredible book. You know, as a guy, you know, I've been around goats and agriculture, cattle my whole life, but when I go to try to find knowledge on something, sometimes it's hard, especially with goats. Goats are still this kind of foreign alien species, I think, in the United States. And to try to find a comprehensive piece of text or video that's going to kind of give you the A to Z type of menu of what goats are, how to deal with them, and what you can do with them. You've put together a really great book. It's on audio right now. So let's start off by just telling me what prompted you to write this book, and you know, what has been your experience now that you've got it out on the shelves, so to speak?
Yeah, thanks for asking about that, Max. So the book's called Goats for Good, and it's not really the book that I sat down to write. You know, people have been telling me, yeah, this is a great story. You should write this story, or you should write a book about how to do targeted grazing, or you should just write a book about taking care of goats. And it's a little bit of all those things. But when I sat down to write it, this chapter kind of came out that is, I think it's the first or second chapter in the book, but it's called America's Got a Goat Problem. And I realized pretty fast, like we have to deal with this issue right up front. Before I can talk about goats, we have to talk about the fact that goats have a lot of benefits that are unique in the livestock world, a lot of benefit to deliver to people. And yet, and in fact, people realize those benefits, and that is communicated by virtue of the price of goats. Now, it doesn't matter what purpose you intend to use a goat for, it's expensive. It's expensive to buy goats. And so the prices for goats keep going up and up and up, but the overall number of goats in the United States is flat or even shrinking, which kind of defies the logic of supply and demand, that at some point we should respond to higher and higher prices by producing more goats, but we don't in the United States. And that's a problem, because that says to me that we're having trouble producing goats. And why? Why are we having trouble raising goats in the United States and increasing the numbers? Is there a price that could even lure us into raising more goats more successfully right now? I'm not sure what that price would be because their prices are awfully high already. And so if people are having trouble raising goats, and if you dig into the data, you find that people get in and out of goats very quickly. They buy them, they try to raise them, they find out that they're a real challenge. And if we can't keep producing goats, then we're not going to be able to deliver all the good that goats have to offer. And, that good is targeted grazing with goats for weed and brush control without chemicals and machinery, and that good is really amazing meat for people that's really important in their culture and in their family traditions. And the list goes on and on of all the benefits of goats. And so after that chapter kind of came out of me, I'm like, I think this book's going in this direction, so we're just going to roll with it. So it ends up not being so much a how-to as a how to think about raising goats, rather than kind of the day-to-day rubber meets the road things about raising goats. Because you can find information about, which vaccines to give and how to trim hooves and how to deal with stomach worms. I mean, that information's out there, and so far it's not really helping us produce more goats more successfully. So I just tried to take a little different approach and kind of tell it more as a story than rather a set of instructions.
I think that is something that I really enjoyed about the book, is the comprehensive thought process. I think that's so much what you put into it was, and you just said it, which was inspiring the thought about goats and all the different things involved there. And that really, you had an area, one of your chapters, you talked about the opportunities with goats. And one of those things, as it pertains to goat grazing and running a targeted goat grazing business, is this idea that you actually don't even have to have goats to start in this business, or you don't have to own goats to do this business. So talk to me a little bit about that idea.
Yeah, you kind of hit on this earlier in one of your questions. Not every goat producer, even a very successful one, is cut out to provide a commercial service to customers in a non-agricultural setting. So what that means is there's a lot of goats out there that could be available for use in goat grazing services without even necessarily having to buy them. There's mutually beneficial opportunities out there where, a targeted grazer could build a relationship with a goat producer, lease those goats from the goat producer to provide their service, benefiting both the rancher and the operator. And then the operator isn't stuck with having to feed them all through the winter and have a winter feed bill and winter chores to do. And so, that's not going to work for everybody. The vendor, the targeted grazing vendor, still needs to have good experience and management skills with goats. But in many cases, many vendors of targeted grazing are burdening themselves unnecessarily with year-round goat care, when really all they want to do is provide the service to customers. And ranchers are missing opportunities to save themselves money, stockpile more winter feed, produce more hay by having those goats off of their land for a big part of the year. And so it's an opportunity that I think is overlooked and could make a lot of people more successful in this business.
How successful have you been in this education? Because I know you're talking to some of your affiliates about it. Is this model in production? Are you seeing ranchers realizing that opportunity, as well as service providers realizing that opportunity and making that partnership work?
Yes, more of our affiliates take this approach every year, even if it's, I've got my 40, 50 goats for that little backyard suburban job, but when the big job for the state conservation department pops up, I'm going to go lease 300, right? Or whatever number's necessary to get the job done. But yeah, this is creeping into our affiliates day to day more and more often. The challenge here is that it sounds nice and rosy on the surface, but not everybody's good at forming relationships, and making trust-bound relationships with people is hard work, and not every personality is good at it. And so that's why it's like not just an automatic, oh yeah, I'll just go lease goats from that guy over there, Well, that guy over there needs to be able to trust you, and that's going to require relationship, and relationships are challenging, and it's a different skill set, but those goat grazers out there who can develop that skill set have a real opportunity.
I mean, what a novel, incredible concept that, like you hit on. In most places, this grazing season doesn't go 12 months a year. There's 3 or 4 months in the wintertime that a lot of folks are sitting there going, boy, I have this massive expense of feeding my herd of goats that I wasn't counting on. And what an interesting and novel concept to say, well, I don't have any goats over the winter that I have to feed because I don't have and I don't own my own goat herd. It's brilliant. It's fantastic.
Well, I would really like, unfortunately, there's the potential for us to kind of talk to other industry people who do targeted grazing, and it becomes kind of an echo chamber where we're all talking to each other. And what we really need to be doing is selling this idea to goat producers everywhere, because if a goat producer knows this opportunity exists and that somebody's going to come pick up 200 of their goats every spring, I mean, just think of the things that producer might do. They might take on more livestock somewhere else and raise them in a pasture-based system, or they might produce more goats, or like I said, just produce more hay for their own winter feed, or stockpile forage, which just incentivizes regenerative practices on pasture. So yeah, if we can find the producers and help build these relationships, I think we're heading in the right direction.
A savvy producer could look at it and go, I have 1,000 acres of pasture land for however many my herd is now. A savvy producer could say, I could get unlimited acreage out there if I were to partner with some of these service providers and let them utilize my goats. There's no real limit to how many acres he could actually theoretically, quote, quote, be running and the number of animals he could be running. Is that kind of that's a pie in the sky view, but that's kind of the possibility, right?
Yeah, absolutely right. It's just managing the logistics and the relationships. I mean, there are limits. If I'm producing goats in Idaho, I probably don't want to ship them to Florida.
Right.
It's just too different and too many potential worm problems and that sort of thing. But within a region, if I'm going to get hundreds or even more goats off of my ranch for 6-7 months at a time, and get them back just in time for breeding, how far am I willing to ship those? Probably a pretty long way. And there's biosecurity issues and all that sort of stuff. But these are obstacles that can be overcome if we just tackle this possibility.
What does this kind of a lease program look like from both sides of it? But there's got to be, like in the cattle industry, there's when you're leasing pasture land, you're leasing on the gains or you're leasing by head. So how does that work in this particular arrangement?
Yeah, so I talk about this in Goats for Good a little bit, about the things that should probably be included in a lease contract for animals. And of course, there's the obvious ones, like who's responsible for shipping, who's responsible for any deaths that you have en route, what's the compensation rate if I lose animals and can't return them to you, all that sort of stuff. And so we could probably sit down and pencil out a contract together and include all sorts of a long list of details. But I think that the general theme is the easier it is for the targeted grazer, the more they're going to be willing to pay the rancher. So in other words, the more the rancher trusts the operator and gives the operator more freedom, the more they're going to be willing to pay in terms of a lease rate to that rancher. But that increases with trust between the two parties. So, but yeah, I don't think that you could imagine shipping off feeder kids to a targeted grazing operator. And in that case, rate of, daily gain would be important, or overall gain during the length of the contract would be important. If you're sending off dry does, for example, of course, gain doesn't matter nearly as much as can we put condition back on them generally and return them healthy and ready to breed. So you can think of all sorts of performance measures you might want to put into a contract. But from my perspective as a targeted grazier, I want to be trusted to just return healthy animals to you. So if you're going to require me to do FOMACHA scores every week on 400 goats, or body condition scores, or feed some expensive supplement, then I can't pay you as much as the targeted grazing operator. So, I mean, those are just some thoughts.
Yeah, I would imagine, just like everything in this industry, it's all situational, and there's different opportunities, different situations. So it's never going to be the clear cut, here's what it is, but there's all of those options to look at.
Yeah. And the cool part is this is possible because we're all raising or we're working with goats, and goats offer so many crazy opportunities if we'll just take advantage of them. And in fact, we need to take advantage of them because goats are hard to raise. So in order to be profitable with goats in any way, we got to take advantage of as many opportunities as possible in order to stay in business and continue to offer good through our goats to people in the U.S.
Well, that nails exactly what I felt was the most enjoyable part of the book for me, which is the stacking of enterprises that you talk about. And you're giving that thought process about, okay, here are a lot of different things that you can do with goats, but here are things you can do with your goats in succession or in combination with what you might already be doing or think about doing. So give me that idea. What is this idea of stacking enterprises?
Yeah, I mean, people have been promoting the stacking of enterprises on farm for a long time. Joel Salatin is famous for it. So, I can't take credit for that. But I mean, the point is to capture more benefit without increased cost so that we can stay profitable. And with goats, the potential benefits they offer, this is the unique part, often take them off farm. So for us, it might plant us in suburban Chicago at a city park, right? And that's one way to capture additional benefit, but it's not the only way. Another way, if you just want to keep those goats on farm or on your ranch, is to use them for weed and brush control and really embrace all the benefits that has to offer for your operation in terms of cost savings, reduce use of chemical herbicides. The fact that you have a tool, essentially, for weed and brush control on your farm, but this tool appreciates in value, doesn't depreciate in value like that skid steer does with the forestry mower on it, and stacking those enterprises in a complementary way, in a way that fits into your family life and your lifestyle and your particular needs locally is what makes that stack work. So not all of our affiliates are interested in having a meat goat operation. I raise meat goats, but some of our affiliates just want to do targeted grazing. Well, in that case, you're really limiting the stack that you can put together, that you can assemble. So that person might be prime for the idea of leasing goats from a rancher because they can't build a complete stack of enterprises that complement each other and provide multiple layers of benefit. So the more you dial into like one thing, and we talk about goat goggles in the book, the more your goat goggles steer you to just this one thing and shut off all these opportunities, the more you have to make just that one thing work to be successful.
So as a targeted grazer, you're really in this service business more so to some degree than you are in the agricultural business. As a service provider, you should, or you may, come with a set of skills that enable you to talk with people, to educate people, and to entertain people. So there's opportunity for folks that are already traveling around their area with animals to do a lot of things to entertain, educate, and provide some other form of revenue to the business that doesn't just involve renting their goats out for vegetation management. So the idea of stacking the enterprises, just like you said, Joel Salatin talks about it on the farm, but in the service industry with our herds of goat, there's lots of opportunity.
Yep. And there's a whole bundle of enterprises that kind of draw on the PR skills of goats, the ability of goats to engage. And these aren't, yes, it includes things like goat yoga, but it doesn't have to be just cutesy things. I mean, part of capturing all the benefits of goats is fully embracing their uniqueness and their ability to engage people. And if we don't recognize that, we're missing a lot of opportunity.
Absolutely. Goats are a very social, enjoyable animal, if you allow them to be. Let's talk a little bit about, you have started Sheep on the Go. And so we, in the targeted grazing industry, we know that goats and sheep have different respective jobs to some degree. They work together, but there are some things going on now, especially in the solar grazing industry, where sheep are kind of the banner species to be doing some of this work. So tell me about starting up and why you started Sheep on the Go and what you're seeing especially in the solar grazing industry.
Sure. So we started to see, I continue to believe that there's a lot of opportunity in solar grazing, and sheep do seem to be, for the most part, the ideal tool for that. And for those who don't know, solar grazing is just maintaining the vegetation beneath solar panels on solar farms. And so when we saw that opportunity start to develop, we just knew that goats have a bad reputation for climbing on things and chewing on any type of cable or wire they can access. And so knowing that sheep would be the ideal tool, we just developed an additional trademark that our affiliates can use. So when one of our affiliates joins, they become a Goats on the Go affiliate and a Sheep on the Go affiliate by default, and they can use the Sheep on the Go trademarks as they see fit, depending on the types of projects they're pursuing. The solar industry is fascinating and confusing and bureaucratic but also full of potential. So it is challenging to break into, but some of our affiliates are already doing some solar grazing projects. It's a little bit different type of approach. I mean, with goat grazing, we're getting in there and hammering it hard and fast with goats. And each grazing event has its own goals and objectives, but it's a hard-hitting thing. And with sheep for solar grazing, we're typically talking about maintaining the vegetation on that site beneath the front edge of the solar panels, because we can't have any part of the vegetation poke up above the solar panels and cast a shadow on the panel and reduce the efficiency of the energy gathering. So we're talking about maintaining that vegetation throughout the growing season and doing it for one price per acre. So it really lends itself to the targeted grazer who's also interested in growing a farm. It's a great way to provide this service, but also produce an awful lot of lambs, and to do it with a low land cost. In fact, an inverted land cost, because you're getting paid for the land you're grazing. So those of us, if you've done targeted grazing with goats before and you've ever been told, man, what a great scam you got going, people pay you to feed your goats. Well, we all know that there's a lot more to it to that, and it's super challenging, and there's a lot of risk. But the solar grazing world, it approaches that more. It still takes a professional. It still requires a lot of skill and public relations ability and relationship building, but it is a bit more like just getting paid to access a lot of pasture, at least in some situations. There are situations where those sites need fully restored through the benefits of grazing. But, once you've got good vegetative cover, you can really produce a lot of lambs on land that you're getting paid to access.
It's a fascinating concept, and it's similar to the producer, the goat rancher who has 1,000 head and doesn't want to keep him on his land the entire time. An opportunity, an outlet for him to team up with a service provider, a targeted grazer. But this is another extension of, how do I gain more pasture land for my existing herd of sheep and or goats? Goats can be used in situations. I think it's just not as popular as easy just yet. But are you seeing goats being used on solar installations?
I'm aware of a few. The infrastructure that's there, the design of the solar panels and the structure holding them up and the way the cables are managed and all that stuff, and the type of vegetation you're dealing with on site could provide an opportunity for goat grazing, or dictate that goats are the best tool for the job on that site. But just broadly speaking, it seems like sheep are the best solution in the most places.
Well, not without, I'm sure, many hoops to jump through. Like you said, a lot of bureaucracy and things that are involved in those, but another great opportunity for folks to extend their pasture, to get paid for the use of that pasture, and to produce more animals. So that's for whatever their enterprise stacking might be. So that it's another fascinating and fantastic component of this industry. This leads into your other venture that you've got going on, the Farm Dog podcast. And before we kind of get into that, I often get asked by folks, how can we do this if I don't have a border collie, or if I don't have a livestock guardian dog? Do I have to have those things to be a targeted grazer? What's your answer to that?
Kind of what started Farm Dog was that I was going to be getting my first stock dog a few years ago, but I've been doing the business since 2012. So we've made it work without a herding dog. I'm quickly learning that we should have had a herding dog the whole time. It would have made things a lot easier. But we made it work, and we didn't know any different. I have a young pup right now, and she's going to be going to work for us, but she's not quite to the point yet where we can put her in that suburban park I mentioned and load up goats without the potential for a wreck. So there's got to be this tipping point, where the dog reduces the potential of a wreck instead of increases it. And we're not there yet. So, but we will be using her on projects. And livestock guardian dogs, though, until we get really large and remote and we're going to be on a site for a long time with in an area of really high predator pressure, we find that the livestock guardian dogs are best left at home. So we use them on our farm and on an occasional project. But if it's relatively small and we're going to be in and out in a week and we're going to be moving our enclosures every few days with our electric fence, and it's going to be completely surrounded by our electric fence, we typically haven't found a need for livestock guardian dogs on site. There are some locations in the U.S. where you better have a dog there from day one. I would say those are somewhat rare.
So if a listener out there wants to find out a little bit more about dogs, farm dogs, stock dogs, guardian dogs, tell me what spurred your passion to start this farm dog podcast, because they can find you there and find out what about dogs.
Yeah. So I came to this point where I said, this is silly. We've got enough livestock around here. And my 3 sons had all hit college age. So I was losing my labor. And so I'm like, well, I got to get serious. I've trained hunting dogs. Why do I not have a stock dog yet? And so I started doing the research and calling people and sending emails. And I'm like, as long as I'm making all these phone calls and asking all these questions, why don't I ask them on a recording and let other people benefit from my naivety? So, so I actually started just like finding people online that I wanted to talk to. And I was too dumb to even know that some of these people are big names, like in the stock dog trial world. And I have no business asking them to be on my brand new podcast, but I didn't know any better. So I did anyway. And they were generous enough to come on and do interviews. So basically the format of the whole podcast is just novice asking expert questions. And so we talk about stock dogs. We talk about livestock guardian dogs quite a bit. We get into like any dog that provides work of value on the farm. So we even talk about terriers for pest control, and we get into hunting dogs a little bit. Any dog that makes rural life easier, we'll talk about. And that has been a ton of fun. It's kind of a labor of love. We do kind of use it as a marketing tool for Goats on the Go to recruit people who might already have goats and sheep into the affiliate fold, but generally it's just for fun. And we've done over 100 episodes now, and I'll just keep doing it as long as I can keep finding the time and people like it.
And continue to learn more about dogs and how fascinating they are. It's, finding the experts out there that know what they're talking about is entirely why, or one of the reasons why I'm invited you on the show so that I also can hear from an expert, learn from an expert, and get more knowledge. So it's a much appreciated thing that you're doing out there in a lot of ways. So let's talk about we'll kind of start to wrap it up here a little bit. I know your time is valuable, and what do you see as the future for Goats on the Go? Any changes? What direction are you going, or remaining the same?
Yeah, great question. It was pointed out to me not long ago that most businesses have to blow things up and reshape them about every decade. And we've been at this for over a decade now. And so, maybe it's time to look at our business model and shift some things up. I don't have anything specific to talk about, but we want to just keep growing, and not only keep growing, that's probably secondary to wanting to help people, more and more people, be able to make their small or large, any size farm. Really, I kind of have a heart for small farms because that's where I started, but we want to help them be successful. And adding ventures that complement their on-farm work is often a way that you can do that. So in whatever way we can do that, that's kind of where Farm Dog came from too, is just like, this is something that could help me, but it could help other people who have questions about these things. So who knows? I like where we're headed right now. I love the community of people that we work with in our affiliate network. And we'll just keep plugging ahead and offering new services and benefits wherever we see value, and in a way that we have the bandwidth for.
So then, should we expect a spinoff of Goats for Good?
Boy,
not to put you on the spot.
I would like to write more in the future. I think, it's still a little new. Like, I feel like I just kind of got that one done. It's in audio format right now and kind of presented in the form of a podcast. And I already have people asking when there's going to be a print edition out. So that's probably the next thing I'll tackle, is getting a paperback copy of Goats for Good available. And then we'll see, maybe there's other books about farm dogs and things in the future. Who knows?
I don't know. For those of us out here that are entrepreneurs, boy, I think you could sure have a bunch of different individual books about the different enterprises and things that you can do to stack into your business to make yourself more profitable and give yourself more headaches and but more excitement as well. So I think there's a lot there for you, Aaron. I know you've got all the time in the world to be doing it. So man, I'm waiting for books number 2, 3, 4, and 5.
Well, thanks. You can pre-order at, no, just kidding.
Exactly. Well, Aaron, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate you being on the show. You're doing some phenomenal work out there. Let's leave my listeners with that one nugget of advice. If they're looking to get into this industry, now I know probably the best way to do that is to become an affiliate with Goats on the Go. But if you're just going to give somebody that big nugget of information and advice, what is that?
Yeah, so this is a business that a lot of people get into for the extrinsic benefits. Like it's a feel good business. And I love that people want to do it because of those feel good things, but I also want you to be in business for a long time. So shoot for the stars, plan on making money. I want you to make money, set your prices high, have high expectations for this service because you're not just feeding goats on other people's property. You're providing a valuable service that people need and people want to pay for. So give them what they want. Give them a price to pay for your service that rewards you.
Wise, wise words. So Aaron, how can folks find you and find out more about Goats on the Go, Goats for Good, and even Farm Dog?
Yeah. Goatsonthego.com is the best place to learn about goat grazing in general, but then you can click at the top where it says own a business and you can read a little bit more about our affiliate program and even request more information if you're interested. So that's goatsonthego.com and click own a business as on the top of the menu items there. Farmdogpodcast.com or on any podcast app that you use. And goatsforgood.com will take you to a place where you can pay for the podcast. It's a one-time subscription fee. You don't pay month after month, and you can download it right into the podcast app that maybe you're already listening to this interview on.
All incredible information. I highly urge everybody and anybody to explore all of these great resources that Aaron has available. Aaron, thank you so much for being on the Goat Grazing Podcast.
It's been fun, Max. Thanks so much for the invitation.
You bet. And for all of you out there listening, thank you for your time. And until we meet again, get out there, get to grazing, and have a goat day.